Like, normally something like that.
Need some of you guys coming in, Coach?
Yeah. Are they coming in for study hall?
No, we've already had study.
Yeah, they back. Jim over.
Okay.
Y'all called him up, Coach. I told him, nah.
Guys, you guys don't have to wish me happy birthday.
Can they show you some love, man?
You're great.
Yeah, you had to put the
I
ice
got it
on.
upside down. I've never worn it before. There we go.
Depends on who you're trying to show it to. You know what I mean? This way, or do you want to look at it? You know what I'm saying? But we'll jump right into it. Hell, since we're here, I just learned about you. All right, so we just talked, and you told me that you are an '80s baby, just like me. You're celebrating your 41st birthday today. First of all, how was today as a birthday? And the reason why I asked, to me, the older I get, even though I'm a few blocks younger than you, my birthday just feels like another day. You do anything special today?
Well, the sad part about it is my assistants have the team today, so I kind of just drove from Sonic to Sonic, waited for my 4-year-old to get out of school, but I got to see the guys. They did individual workouts today. Got to eat dinner with my 4-year-old, my wife, and then the guys stopped by a while ago. So it was a good day. But as you get older, the thing that you realize is that you kind of almost get embarrassed when people try to celebrate you, because the most fun part about being an adult is there's a lot of not fun parts about being a coach.
Right.
But the fun parts of it is you get to constantly celebrate other people. And I'm much more comfortable in that role than I am celebrating myself, And so I think young people can pick up on that with us adults, and they like embarrassing us.
That's right. I think I agree with that feeling though, because it's like I never want to come across as too pretentious. Like I take myself too seriously. So I'd much rather put the spotlight on you, Coach, or somebody else for that matter. But okay, so you came up, or you graduated from Altus, right? Is that born and raised? Tell me about the Altus living. My only experience with Altus is playing in junior college. When I was at Murray, of course, we had to go see Western, and make that long trip out there and go get our heads beat in. Yeah. But how was it growing up in Altus?
Well, looking back on it now, I was really fortunate. I'm born and raised in Altus. My dad moved us there way before I was even a thought. He got out of coaching a long time ago. And got in kind of on the grassroots of this company that it's pretty well known now, Edward Jones.
Yes, sir.
So at the time, the company's motto was small town America. And so Altus was kind of an untapped area, not just Altus, but all the surrounding towns and the small towns in Texas and Oklahoma around Southwest Oklahoma. So I'm born and raised there. But the gold and everything that happened is that I ran into a legendary coach. And so Clester Harrington, his sons are Bruce and Kevin. They were at Lawton Ike, Lawton Mac. And so I basically walked into an institution. Like my sophomore, junior year, Barry Trammell and the Dale Oklahoma, they actually came down and did this whole feature on Coach. And I always knew that I had a good coach. And I always knew that, like, I was excited to see him. And, like, he was an older man by the time I was in high school. But I didn't realize until I got into coaching that this man had moved to Altus in the 70s and had been the Altus High School coach. And so the title of the article was basically talking about Coach Harrington as Altus High School was an institution and was his lab. And so as I got started to, as we get adults, we start to figure out why we love what we love. Like, was it rejection? Was it a positive experience? Was it someone that we looked up to? And the main reason why I'm in basketball, I didn't really know it at the time either, is that I love my high school coach. My high school coach was like my hero, and so he's still alive today. His two sons were two of our biggest rivals, Lawton Mack, Lawton Eisenhower. I mean, they were always had killers. And so Cluster Harrington, Altus, Oklahoma. I was born and raised there, played golf, basketball, beautiful community. And coming back to OBU after spending 15, 16 years on the East Coast, that's been a neat part of this job, is been able to reconnect, kind of come back to my roots. Not that it's a big deal to others, but it's a big deal to me, to like see people that I had known when I was a kid, and like just even talking with you about Tulsa Central, like, when you're a Division I assistant, your whole livelihood to keep a job and to move up in the business is recruiting. Mm-hmm. And so if I had ever brought up Tulsa Central or I'd ever brought up Altus, Oklahoma, people in Virginia and Georgia, I would have never talked about that. Right. And so the great thing about the Oklahoma basketball community is that you can really relate to people. You can say one name or one school or one game, and like people from Oklahoma, you can really connect real quick.
Yep.
And so I think we're an underrated basketball state.
I agree.
We have an undercurrent. We have some guys that have gone on and done big things like Trey or Blake, Mark Price way before them, Brent Price. We've definitely had some guys that have gone like, whether it be Wayman Tisdale or Stacey King or different guys. But, the undercurrent, all the small college players, all the coaches, the grassroots and all that, we have a neat we've always had a neat thing going, and I almost feel like there's a little bit of a groundswell of people Texas has always had a big rep as far as people from Texas, and people always, Florida and Texas, the football and the athletes and the basketball. And so I feel like Oklahoma nationally, people are starting to see that. And I feel like some of the guys that are the front of the line for us, like a Trey Young, they bring that positive exposure to our state.
Right. By the time we're getting our just due, so to speak.
Yeah.
Speaking of ball, how were you as a player? To describe yourself to me and your career and how it went.
Well, I wasn't a good player. You couldn't have told me that then. I was
not short on confidence then.
Yeah, I was that classic kid that grew up in a small town. My high school coach protected me. I was in the starting lineup from a young age, and so I thought I was good. And so I got a scholarship here at Oklahoma Baptist, and at the time, Oklahoma Baptist was on fire, like Southern Nazarene or Oklahoma Christian. You had OU and OSU, you had Coach Sampson, Coach Tubbs, you had Coach Sutton, and then you had Tulsa and ORU were kind of, depending on the year, were on the come up. But outside of that, when you looked in the state, you looked at a Bob Hoffman or at OBU or a Dan Hayes at Oklahoma Christian or Bobby Martin at Southern Nazarene. Win Case and Daryl Johnson were at Oklahoma City University. They were big. And so the crowds were big. The interest was big for small college basketball. The Big Eight at that time was big when I was a kid. We had so many great games with OU and OSU. I don't even know the state. I've been here 3 years, and I'm starting to just now get acclimated. I don't know the basketball state with having the Thunder. OU football was the closest thing that we had. That's the pro team in our state.
That's right.
And so from afar, I would do a little recruiting out here as I started to notice how our state completely embraced, the Thunder. And that's probably the neat part of us getting a pro team was our state is going to support it.
For real.
And
I remember the turnout at Chesapeake, before it was Chesapeake, when it was still the Ford Center, I think it was. That was before the Thunder were even contenders. It was still
packed, right?
Packed, nuts. We were so happy to have them.
We would see all those people on our Facebook was big then, and we would see people on our Facebook because I used to always check in with Facebook every day because of recruiting. Mm-hmm. And so I used to see all my Oklahoma people that I was friends with. They would always start saying, "Go Thunder, go!" And I was like, "Man, the Thunder are taking over the state."
It didn't take long either.
Yeah. And so from a player standpoint, I did good in high school, college. When I came to this program, I think we were the preseason #1 ranked team in the country when I was a freshman. And I didn't realize the level that I was walking into. I mean, this is a type of program to where I think Coach Hoffman took them out to play like Oregon State and BYU, who were top 50 teams, and they beat one of them by 20 and lost to the other one at the buzzer. And so that's the level that it was.
Wow.
I don't know how we would have done against OU or OSU. I'm sure we would have battled with them, but small college basketball, was on fire. It wasn't just on fire with the coaches and the players, but it was on fire with the fans. And so that's really what we're trying to get back. Not just at OBU, but a Southern Nazarene or a Southeastern University or a UCO.
Yes, sir.
Is that we're getting that small college thing back. The competition and the coaching has been there, but we really want to get the fans back interested in it. And so last year we had some momentum going into last year, and then of course the world stopped.
Right.
And we were just thankful that we got to play. But long story short, I was not that good of a player. I was a decent high school player, but I was one of those kids that I love the game. If there was I would rather, instead of going to parties, I would go to the gym and shoot. Even all the way up into my 30s, I would, even now, I don't really tell our players this, but when they go home from a game, I normally can't sleep. I'll come back up here, because they have the game, and I'll work out, up here.
There you go.
Just because I love, I'm always jealous of our players too. Like, as much as I enjoy coaching, there's nothing like playing.
Nothing.
And so I always, I'll be up here at midnight after a game, and I'll just be, especially if we win, we normally win at home. And so I'll be up here with my earbuds in, and I'll be dribbling around because I like being around people that love the game.
Sure.
That's been the people that I've worked for are true, like Kelvin Sampson or Bob Hoffman or Richie McKay. They've been guys that are real hoopers in my mind. Like, they're real coaches, but when I say real hoopers, they're in it for the long haul.
Right.
And so those are the kind of people I connect with. Those are the kind of players I connect with. Those are the type of people that I like to be around socially, is that I like basketball for just the essence of it. When you have a big crowd or you get some attention for your team, like when we beat Duke a few years ago, when I was at Mercer, everybody that ever met any of us on our staff, they all hit us up. But it's like, that was just another day for us. I mean, it was an awesome day. But I'm saying, those guys on that team, they loved being in the gym in July. Love being in the gym in August.
True gym rats, as we like to call them,
Yeah.
students of the game.
No question.
Speaking of the game, as you know better than me, I'm sure you got levels to it. So can you think of that introductory moment where it was like, welcome to the next level, once you went from high school and got to college and realized that, oh man, it's not as sweet as it once was?
Well, that summer, the coaches moved us up here. And so Clay Martin, who was the head coach at Jamestown, I actually got to see him a few nights ago, got to introduce him at an event there in Tulsa. As I told this story is that, right when I got up here, he had just finished. But what I had to come to realize is that I was 6 foot, 150 pounds. He's like 6'6", 225, and he played my same position. And granted, there's a lot of guys my age that were small, that were really good. But I'm saying, just walking into this environment and seeing a Quinn Wooldridge, who was the coach at OBU before I was here, he was like 6'5", 6'6", 2 guard. I was, it was too much. It was too much. I mean, I hung in there, and like guys that I played with, I mean, we all keep in touch. And I think if I had stayed at OBU, I think I could have turned into a valuable backup type point guard. I ended up going on to Hardin-Simmons, a Division III school, and being a scoring like 2 guard, double-digit 2 guard. But as far as this level goes,
Right.
Man, it was a wake-up call from jump.
I got you. Now, but I'm actually glad to hear about the last half of that journey. You said you ended up redirecting and going. Say the name of the school again for me.
Hardin-Simmons University.
He went to Hardin-Simmons University. So
Division III school.
You're right, and it's so funny to hear you say that, because I deal with kids every day, and I'm pretty sure you've heard this too. They get so caught up on the status of the school. Oh, I played at Division I, or I played Division II. Well, really, you sat at Division I, or you sat Division II. So it seems to me like playing was important to you, no matter where. Did it take a whole lot for you to be like, you know what, I think I need to try my hand elsewhere, or was it instant?
Well, we had a coaching change. So so our coach ended up the guy that we all came to play for, who's now the coach at UCO, Bob Hoffman.
Mm-hmm.
He got a Division I head coaching job in October of that year. It was really strange. So we had a coaching change. So naturally, when a coaching change happens, there's a reshuffling of the deck. They hired a wonderful coach, but they didn't hire him until that spring. So we played for an interim coach, Clay. Clay went with coach. The athletic director now here, who hired me, Robert Davenport, he was the head coach of Missouri Baptist. He went down there with coach. You know, it was kind of like such a big thing looking back on a small college guy like a Bob Hoffman of getting a Division I job, because everyone knew how good not only he was, but all the surrounding schools, you know, a UCO, a Dan Hayes. And so I think coach had a groundswell of people that was really not pushing him out the door, but that was excited to see one of us, so to speak, you know, Division I. And so as weird of an experience as I had as a student athlete, I played for like 5 head coaches in 4 years.
Really?
Is from the moment that I got into college coaching, because of Coach Hoffman, I was never not at the Division I level. Mm-hmm. So this idea that you're talking about, as far as the Division I, Division II, Division III, I haven't really felt that until I came back here. Mm-hmm. Because every phone call that I made for 15 years, you know, I'm recruiting for Liberty University, University of Oklahoma, Mercer University, to where I never really have felt that. But since I've been here, we've had several Division I kids, based off my background and my staff's background, that have bounced back to us, or kids that we've recruited, but they've wanted to wait to see if they got a Division I opportunity. And we're trying to, you know, and that's where my experience has really kicked in, and just saying, look, there's nothing wrong with being at Mercer University. I love it. There's nothing wrong with being at Liberty University. I loved it. There's nothing wrong with being at the University of Oklahoma. I loved it. It's what Coach Sampson gave me my start in coaching. But if you're not one of their main guys and you're going to be one of our main guys, it's a no-brainer. You know, but saying that to a young person, saying that to a family that's never experienced, like, there's not, if you name any of the top programs, you name any of the top arenas in the country, Madison Square Garden or Cameron Indoor or the NCAA tournament, or I've coached in all those environments. And so it doesn't mean anything to me. What means something to me is the people that I'm coaching, you know? And so we really impress upon our players that it's not necessarily make the big time where you're at. Like, I've heard people that I've worked for use that term, is that the best thing going is what you got going on right now. And so whether you're in junior high, high school, NBA, Division I, Division II, I've looked at every job I've had, including this one, is that there's no place that I would rather be. And the men that raised me in this business, Kelvin Sampson, Bob Hoffman, that's how they are. You know, Coach Sampson was telling a group of us coaches the other day, he started at Montana Tech in Annie High School. And he just said, you could not tell me that wasn't the best job I ever had.
Right.
You know, and every job he's gone to. And he's, you know, him and Coach Hoffman have had such a heavy influence on me, is every time I've been around them, whether it was Indiana or whether it was Mercer, whether it was Oklahoma Baptist, whether it was a G League team, D League team, like, every time I'm with them, every time I work for them, every time I'm around them, talk to them, the most important thing they got going, they're not trying to go somewhere. They're trying to make what they're doing better. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to impact people where they're at. And I'll take it a step further than admiring them, is that I just being around them, I thought that was normal.
And then realize that not everybody is wired that same way, huh?
No, but
Yeah.
that's also why they've been wildly successful, is that they're not looking to the left or to the right. They're not watching a game on TV saying, man, if I could just get to that place. Mm-hmm. We don't, and I feel like, you know, being a new head coach here 3 years ago, there's so many parts of the job that I've learned. I was an assistant for so many years, and there's so many things that I've, even going into my 4th season, that I'm like, man, I want to get better at that. I want to get better at this. I'm still learning in that. The one thing that I brought with me that's probably been our biggest strength is that those kids and those players in our locker room, is that they know we're not trying to go nowhere. They know that they are the most important thing in our world.
That means a lot.
Yeah, and we live and breathe them. And so I think that goes a long way to anything that we're doing with our families or with our jobs or with our friends, is that I got great friends. I got great players. I don't think that if I got the job at the Thunder that's going to make me any happier or any less. I mean, you saw my guys in here earlier. I mean,
oh man, they put on a show for you.
Yeah. How blessed am I?
Come on now. Because, kids will get real cool on you. If they rock with you, you're going to know it. But if they don't, you're going to know that too. And I'm not sure which one of those makes the most noise. But, Coach, was there do you have any other work history once you got to be an adult before coaching? Or you just coached straight through right after you finished school?
I wasn't even through with college. And Coach Hoffman invited me to come down to Texas Pan American. And I began to be a manager down there. Mm-hmm. And then he resigned and took a job at the University of Oklahoma. So I graduated from down there. I thought I was going to start my coaching career down there with him at Texas Pan American. Now I think it's called Rio Grande Valley. And Coach Sampson, who was the University of Oklahoma coach at the time, he hired Coach Hoffman. And so Coach Hoffman was like, Jay, I got bad news again. Like, meet me over at Furs or wherever he wanted to meet me.
Furs is legendary. By the way.
And he said, I'm resigning on you again. And I said, Coach, you can't do that to me again. And he said, I think he felt really bad. I think looking back on it, he said, I'll make you one promise. He said, when I get up to OU, I'm not the head coach, but I will really, he didn't use the word beg, but he said, I will make it a point to talk with Coach Sampson and the secretary to see if maybe you could keep stats or maybe just be around the program. Mm-hmm. And so he got up there and he called me and said that Coach had agreed to let me work one of their camps. And so every couple weeks, Coach would walk by me and tell me I could stay for another 2 weeks. And so that...
it was on a 10-day or 14-day.
Yeah, barely that. I mean, and so I didn't know until I got older of why he acted the way that he did towards me. He wouldn't view it as tough. Mm-hmm. But being that age and coming from the family that I was and being as soft as I was at that time, Coach would needle me. Coach would say, he would just ask some people around me, like, you guys think that Jay should be able to stay for another week?
Oh, wow.
And this is like, October, November, December. We're right in the middle of the season. And he'd walk by me and say, I think you can stay another week. And so,
thank you, sir.
Yeah, so that was my introduction to the workforce. And then Coach Hoffman and Coach Sampson got me a legitimate job where I got a salary, and got to get like an apartment and all that with benefits out at Liberty University after that. But the 2 years prior, I lived with the coaches.
There you go.
Their wives took me in, and so I didn't care. And the two staffs that I was around worked all the time. And now, with a 4-year-old and being married for over 10 years, it's not conducive. But at that time, the more they worked, the more I got to be around everybody. And so we worked a ton. I learned way more than I realized at the time. Mm. And those first 2 years of being at Texas Pan Am and being at the University of Oklahoma, they have completely laid the foundation for not only those relationships. The associate head coach at the time at Texas Pan Am was a guy by the name of Robert Davenport. So he's the AD here now that hired me. And so, we all have stories like that. Right. Coaching is a game of who you know at times. You got to be able to do the job when you get an opportunity.
For sure. You sink or swim once you get in there.
Yeah. And so coaching is one of those professions where it's really cool when you're young. Mm-hmm. And then when you start getting a little older and you get banged around a little bit and you get fired or you go through different times, you realize that it's really not that cool of a profession.
Yeah. Does it kind of harden you to some degree?
Well, I'll tell you what it's done for me is I don't know the coaches that walk through this coaching journey that aren't Christians. And so I'm a man of faith, not that I view myself as a better man than other people, but I am a strong follower of Jesus Christ and the Lord, and that's how I live my life, and that's how I was raised. And so as you go through all the ups and downs that I go through, what it has done is it really has strengthened my faith. And those few relationships that I had at the beginning, you have different times, like on a birthday or or beating a Duke or the success that we've had at OBU, where you hear from a lot of different people. But really, when things are quiet, I hear from those same few people that I started with, my family and a couple of my mentors. And so it really introduces you to the world of, athletics can be being your job being in athletics is not always a fun thing.
Man,
it can be fun. You can have fun times,
right.
but the gratifying part is seeing the young people grow, seeing a young person come back to your school or during the midst of a trying time, because they're at such an impressionable age. You get to be a part of their journey. And so that's what's kept me in it. I think that I could have done a few other things with my life in the business world. I don't know that for sure. But what's kept me coming back is that I have a love for the game, but more importantly, I really have a love for the players that I've coached. It doesn't work at a 10 with every player that you coach.
Right.
But I have gotten to coach some of the neatest young people, and I hold on to those memories, and I hold on to those relationships as tight as I can.
That's key. And, I heard a quote one time. I can't remember where I got it from. I think I was watching a TV show, and the guy says, nothing that you do really matters unless you're helping people. And it's not profound or eloquent. It's not long and drawn out. It's just short, sweet, straight to the point. And I couldn't agree with that anymore. Now,
one thing that I would add to that is this: is I grew up I didn't grow up tough. I grew up with a mom and dad that provided for me. I grew up in a great home. I grew up. My dad was very financially successful. He was a very present dad. The ups and downs that I went through as a young person, I thought were hard, but they weren't. I really was very privileged. Right. As Coach Sampson would always say, I'm one of those kids that was born on third base and thought I hit a triple. That was kind of me.
I like that.
And so as I got into coaching, and as I really got in, not coaching, but really as I got into being a student assistant, which is a glorified water boy, where you do the towels, the laundry, and you rebound a lot of shots. Mm-hmm. The thing that I found which hooked me into coaching is that I would always be in the gym with the guys when I was a young coach, young manager. I would do the laundry, I would do the film. But then any of the guys that wanted to shoot extra or they wanted to work on their game, I would just always want to be around them.
The gopher, baby.
Yeah. And so the thing that hooked me into coaching is that I met some young people when I was 24, 25, 26, 27, to see that their dreams and their goals were to perform at this Division I level and to do well. And so what hooked me is that we would spend all this time together, and then they had some amazing moments, like in games or stretches of a season, and it gave me more joy and more satisfaction to see them do well than anything that I had ever done. Like, I had some success athletically. I had grew up where, anything that I did, my family or friends would celebrate it. And it gave me more joy for a David Mania or a John Brown or a Seth Curry or an Evan Gordon, or here at OBU, a Brantley Thompson, a Tyler Lester, a Harrison Stoddard. It gives me more joy to help others and see them be successful than any success that I could ever have on my own. And I think that that's how God made us. I think we all feel that when we have children. I think we all feel that if we're helping others, is that there's just a life principle in that when you're helping someone else, it does more for your soul and more for your heart and more for your spirit than anything that could be put on you. And so that's what coaching is. Coaching is helping others. And so I love helping others. It gives you joy. Whether or not it's recognized or not, the thing that I've found is that young man would know and I would know. And it wouldn't even be something that was verbal. It might even be like an unspoken look, like or a wink during a game, or a hug after the game of just like, Coach, thank you. Yeah. And
a nonverbal.
Yeah, and it, just talking about it here with you, it gets me emotional. It gives me chills to think about all the moments that I've gotten to have with these young people. And it's, now when you get older, the head coaching thing, sometimes it's too positive and it's too negative. You get too much of the good jobs, and then you get too much of the blame.
Right.
But like as an assistant coach or a manager, it's more real. It's more genuine. Like any compliment that you were to get or any criticism that you were to get, it's not going to be you're not coloring outside the lines. And that's where, I hate to see any coaches lose their jobs this time of year. Like I think is our society's overreaction. Like USC has been in the news. They fired their football coach, and it's like, why would you unless a man did something unethical, like put your kids in harm's way on a bus, or there was some type of
foul play.
Yeah, but like why would you get rid of a coach this time of year? And so that's the society that we live in, and we've seen it bleed itself down into college, small college, high school, AAU. Obviously, people jumping teams and all that. And so I don't like where a lot of that stuff's going. But the thing that I always come back to is as many of the adults that have let me down along the way, and you'll always have things that pop up at work at whatever job that you're in.
Right.
But the people that haven't let me down are the young people. The young people are true. They have PhDs in sniffing out who's authentically in it for them.
They've got good BS detectors, as I like to say.
Yes, they do.
They are really
No
good.
question.
But I can tell you one thing that you talked about. You don't even know that you explained to me a couple sentences ago that you realized that there's value in an opportunity that may not even necessarily have a huge paycheck attached to it. So that's what was ringing in my mind when you were talking about all the duties behind the scenes that typically somebody that's low on the totem pole has to do. Usually somebody who's younger. But that for me, and it sounds like for you, that was the fun stuff. Because I'm getting to be hands-on with the guys, or it was girls for me when I started coaching. So I'm on the court with them. We're doing all the nuts and bolts type work. And then when I see that aha moment or the light bulb come on in the game, I'm like, proud of you. And it's not even like, I did that. It's just like, you've been working and it's paying off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that look that she gives you or he gives you, and it really comes. It doesn't really come. I've had different moments that have been satisfying as a head coach, but as someone on staff or someone, it's just like you were there. You weren't there for every moment because these kids grow up and they have so many different people that help them. Mm-hmm. But kids really appreciate people that help them. As much as people want to say that young people have changed, I've been in this thing for 15, 16, 17 years. I played for 10 before that when you come to junior high, high school, and college. And like, to me, young people haven't changed. I mean, the whole phone thing is different. The whole podcast thing, the whole social media thing, that's different. But to me, the nuts and bolts of basketball and helping people, it hasn't changed at all to me. I'm still looking straight across from kids that it's the same thing to me.
Right. And maybe we'd have turned out a little bit different if we had these things that you just listed at our disposal. So I gotta give them a little bit of a pass as it pertains to that kind of thing. But Coach, you've had quite the coaching career. Take me through all your stops, man. And by the way, I'm gonna attach a question to that. Did you ever find yourself at a point to where you got maybe a little too settled to where there was time for a movie to be made and you were like, dang, I kind of like it where I'm at?
No.
Okay.
No,
You're built for it then.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into the long version of. I have a whole other separate thing that I've gone through with my own. It's been very well documented, and I speak on that a lot with young people. I had a little bit of a rise and a little bit of a fall from the coaching business. But as far as my stops go, I started out at Pan Am. I went to OU, and then I really got my start at the Liberty University. I worked for 3 or 4 different head coaches, and then I got an opportunity back with Coach Hoffman at Mercer University. And I was there for 6 years, and then this opportunity came up. And so it's kind of come full circle with OBU people in my life. And so I've worked at, 4 or 5 schools? OU, Pan Am, Liberty, Mercer, and now Oklahoma Baptist.
5th one.
And so, but to answer your question, if you look at it on a sheet of paper, you'll see 9 or 10 years here. You'll see 5 or 6 years here. I'm going into my 4th season it has not been that way. It is a day-to-day thing. At any moment, I feel like my job could be taken from me. At any moment, I feel like that God could be taking me somewhere else. Like I do not settle in anywhere. Like we actually bought a house this off season.
Right.
And so even saying that, and even as we were going through the paperwork part of it, I was kind of like uneasy about it. I'm like, we totally need to be the people that are renting, because coaching is it's renting type.
Yeah, it can
and I've had a lot of people tell me that I shouldn't approach it that way. But athletics is fragile.
It is.
Building teams is fragile. Dealing with young people is fragile. You can get crossways with one parent, one administrator, and boom, you could be on to the next. And so the only hope that I have, the only assurance that I have is I have a wonderful family, and that I know beyond a shadow of a doubt with all the things that I've gone through is that God's got a plan for my life. Now, whether that means that I get to keep being a college coach, or whether that means we keep being successful as at Oklahoma Baptist, being a head coach, I don't know. But the one thing that I am convinced of through all the ups and downs that I've been through is that God's got a plan for my life. And the powerful thing for our players is if God's got a plan for me, then there's no question that He's got a plan for them, because I've always viewed them, on such a higher pedestal than my roots and where I came from.
Yeah. It's it's a weird dynamic to me, or dichotomy. I'm not sure which word is the best to describe this feeling that I have. But in this business, we call it a business, but so much personal has to go into it. The personal relationships are going to enhance the position you have in this business. But then when things happen, like you get relieved of your duties, which has happened to me twice, listen, it doesn't get any more personal than that, because now you affected my income, my livelihood, where I'm going to live. And it's like, dang, it's almost like, who do I get mad at? Because I knew what I was signing up for. So you just sort of roll with the punches and try to take from this chapter and apply what you learn to the next chapter. To that, you would say what?
I would say, first off, that if you've only been let go twice,
right,
that I've been let go a few more times than that.
Gotcha.
In our businesses, even if it's not personal to you, I have been let go personally. But even if you're an assistant coach and your boss is let go, normally I have survived some of those, and some of those I haven't. But to say that, my reaction to that is that's normal to me. Like you saying that to me, I don't think it's as normal to other people, is that they view sports as they think that it's a fun thing. They think that it's, the coach should have done this. There's everyone can be a coach. Like you look, social media has so many positive attributes to it, but one of the negative attributes is that if there's ever a big game on, a state championship game, a national championship game, it's like you got 2 million people that think that they know what a Tony Bennett should be doing in the national championship game, or Chris Beard. And it's like, what my parents have come to say to me through this experience here is my dad used to do that. Like, Jay, how come you didn't put Brantley in at this time? Or why did, I thought that was a mistake when you took Harrison out at that time. And as they've been around the program and they've had different times where they've come in and stayed with me, and my dad's been close to sports before, is that a couple years ago, he said, I had no idea all the things that went into coaching, of all the things that go into just one day. You might have a kid that shows up late to something. You might have a kid who something's going on with their girlfriend, or something's going on in the training room, or something's going on with their mental. And like, you got all these moving parts. And so as far as the volatility of the industry, of the profession, I think one of the things that keeps me grounded in it is that, to me, if there's not volatility, it feels strange. Like I'm thinking that, I'm always viewing what we do on a 1 day, 1 week contract.
Literally 1 day at a time.
Yeah.
So it sounds to me like you have become comfortable being uncomfortable, so to speak. To say it nicely, I literally feel like I need to be in counseling to be able to accept positive things at times, because things are so rocky in coaching.
Like you go through years where you know that you got to win, or not since I've been at OBU, but different Division I athletics. It's a minute to minute, a game to game, booster relationship to AD relationship to the next, to where I'm definitely comfortable. I'm not comfortable when people are trying to say, oh, like going into this year, we've had tremendous success these last few years. We have a tremendous team that we have right now. And so I've had a lot of people be like, oh, coach, we're so excited for the season. And it's like, I'm trying to get myself to a place where it's like, I can accept that. Because every time they say that to me, I'm like, yeah, but we could lose every game.
Yeah.
You know, and they're kind of looking at me like, coach, can you just accept the fact that you have a good team and you have a great bunch of kids? And I'm like, when I feel that there's such a, double-edged sword, is that we all those of us in sports know how fragile it is. Mm-hmm. We could come out here to practice tomorrow and our two best players, one of them could get COVID and the other one could tear his ACL. Yeah. And then how excited are we?
Yeah, landscape is totally different now.
Yeah. And I've battled through those years, mm-hmm. And you gotta maximize everything that you have.
Yeah.
And so with last year with COVID, with all of us coaches, it only intensified this life principle of who's ever at practice and if I'm able to be at practice and not be in quarantine, whoever is in front of me, I'm gonna fight like heck to get them better. I'm gonna fight like heck to invest in them. And like, this is what God has given me. God has given me this hour, this 2 hours, and I'm gonna treat it like AI always talked about the games, like play every game like it's your last. And so, some of the men that I work for are some of the best practice coaches mm-hmm. in the industry. Kelvin Sampson probably is one of the best practice coaches in the history of our sport. Just how much he values his role in coming to one practice. He always pounds into all of our heads. There's 3 people that cannot have a bad practice: the head coach, the point guard, and the best player. Those are the 3 people. And he said it so much to where, like, we've all learned from that, whether we've seen it on social media, whether we've heard him speak, whether we've worked for him. And so, from the minute that I got into coaching, he'll always just say that to me. Even when I wasn't a head coach, he would just say, you can't have a bad practice, man. It doesn't matter what's going on with your kid. It doesn't matter what's going on with your wife. It doesn't matter. And like, those of us that love the game, we can embrace that and then those of us that have been quarantined, or those of us that have gone through all this COVID stuff, which all of us have, right, is that if we have an opportunity, if I get another opportunity tomorrow, like I got to be out there on the court last night with our guys for, I think, a little over an hour. I mean, every single minute that I'm out there, I'm like, man, how can I maximize it? And I tell the kids, guys, the better relationship that we have, the more I'm going to try to push you to your limits. And so society is so different. The better relationship that we have, the more that we can enjoy each other's company. As a coach, the better relationship that me and you have, if you're playing for me, the more I can leverage that to lean on you and push on you and get everything out of you.
And now I know where it's coming from.
Yeah. And so that's the part that the young people are really pushing back on the adults. When you see things get messy, it's not so much that maybe things have changed from that standpoint, is that if they know why and they truly believe in what you're telling them, that the real reason why I'm pushing you guys is that I believe in you and I believe that we can do something special. That's why I'm up in your face. That's why I got you on the line. That's why we get up in the morning. That's why we do all this. And so if they really not only listen to what you say, but they can feel that around you, and that's what they signed up for, you communicated the right things through recruiting, they'll let you push them to that ledge every day. And society is built to where you wouldn't build a great relationship with someone so then there could be high-level confrontation. Right. But sports, that's what makes sports. And so we have had a group of young people like that here. And so we've gotten a lot of people that have talked about our kids in that way. But that part is not abnormal to me. Every stop that I've been with a Richie McKay, with a Dale Layer, with a Bob Hoffman, with a Kelvin Sampson, I've always been around those type of players. And I've always been around all those coaches do it a little bit differently, but all of them are Hall of Fame coaches. And so what is being recognized here and what people would say, man, those kids are different. It would be different to me if they weren't that way with the kids that I've been around. And I think that goes back to how important it is with who you work for. You know, and a lot of times we don't get to choose who we work for, and we don't get to choose who our parents are.
That's true.
You know, and so I was really blessed that way. As much as I thought that I gotten banged around a little bit in coaching, it's really not been that. I've been when you just list off the 4 or 5 men that I work for and just go not only see what kind of men they are, their families, but how much success they've had in basketball, I've only seen it done in a way that in that coach's personality, we were successful. All of them have been different, but all of them have been successful.
You know, there were choices that you just used. I'm gonna go a little bit of the long way when it comes to what I'm trying to frame. But as a high school coach myself, we don't necessarily get to have many choices. When it comes to the pick of the litter, we just have to we got to play the hand that we're dealt. We get this level of talent, this level of athletes. Okay, we gotta mold this and groom it and get as much out of it as we can. But it has been said to me anyway, I have no college coaching experience, that at the college level rather as a coach, you get to be a little more selective about the personnel you bring in. But what I'm wanting to ask you, even though I'm pretty sure there's some truth to that, are you locked into a certain style of play that you want to coach, or have you been put in positions to where you have to sort of adjust to the personnel that you have?
That question is a wide-ranging question that I could take many ways. I will say this, here's what we're always judging. We're judging what we need, what we've lost. We have a character piece, we have a talent piece, and then we have positions. As much as people want to say it's positionless basketball,
right?
I don't see it that way. I got guys that handle the ball. I got guys that are good around the bucket. I've got guys that attack. I got guys that can shoot. And so I'm always trying to figure that piece out. And then the thing that should give, not that you need any encouragement, but the part that I would say to encourage you if you needed any, is that we're choosing, but we need people that want to choose us too. It's not like we go to an event, and that's true at Division I, that's true at the BCS level, that's true at Oklahoma Baptist. There's some choices that we have, but there's a lot of choices that you guys have. You guys have 30 young ladies or 30 young men in a gym, and you get to decide who are the ones that you want to work with. Recruiting changes it a little bit. The thing that I'm settling in on and learning about myself as a head coach is that the character piece, the love of the game piece, and the talent piece, those were always factors that we always used. But I'm now understanding the levels that I want. And it's not really something that I could write down. I know the level of talent that we need, but I also know that the kids that are not dependable, the kids that don't love it like me, they're not going to enjoy playing for us.
Right.
And then the style, when you talk about style of play, our style of play, this is very coach speak.
Love it.
But we're trying to win. And so if like some of the kids that you met earlier, some of our players, like a Trey Green from Kingfisher, I don't really know what he is. I don't know if he's a wing. I don't know if he's a big. I don't know. He's definitely not a point guard. But the thing that we evaluated in him is that he's not overly fast. He's not overly big. He's certainly not athletic. But whatever teams he's been on his whole life in football and basketball, he wins. And so we had a few scholarships to give away. I gave a whole scholarship to him. And you know what? My intuition, when I follow my heart with that intuition, and when you've been in it for a lot of years, the recruiting game, you start to understand, there's certain standards, there's certain values that you want, but then as coaches, we also have preferences.
Yes.
You don't have to have 5 guys that can shoot. That's more of a preference.
Right.
But the standards that I'm starting to settle in on going into my 4th year as a head coach is I don't want guys that practice. Like, I'm not that coach. Like, if you practice every now and then, and luckily we haven't had that, like, I'm not going to play you. And like, there's other coaches that do such a beautiful job managing that. Like a guy like is a training room guy and he's in and out and that doesn't bother them. That's something that bothers me. Like a guy who's not going to buy into the team. And then the other thing that I'm big on is that I want to be around people that love the game. And so that if they don't love the game, that doesn't make them bad people. That doesn't mean anything. They could be like some of the neatest kids that I've been around are kids that don't truly love the game, but I don't want to be around them.
Right.
You know, I would rather them go somewhere else to another program. I like being around people that, like, if there was a game on last night, like when I see them at the gym, like there's fewer and fewer young people that watch the game.
Yes.
And so I want to be around people that, like, if the NBA Finals is on last night, they watch the game.
How do you, in my mind, I'm like, how'd you miss it? You know what I mean? Like, did you have another obligation? What happened?
But they're like, not all the kids love it like that.
We'll play the game with the joystick. We won't watch it.
Yeah.
That's kind of a weird deal. Oh, that's what I almost lost the thought. Now, you basically, how much of a difference is it in your estimation, moving over essentially just one seat, going from an assistant?
Well, I don't want this to come out the wrong way because I was a longtime assistant, and when I would hear head coaches say this, I would roll my eyes and it would bother me.
Right.
But it's a whole different profession. Mm-hmm. Like being an assistant coach and being good as an assistant coach, it takes such a certain skill set, and you got to be meticulous with it. You got to learn from it. You got to grow from it. You got to be engrossed in it. And then being a head coach is something completely different. And like what I try to tell our staff this, and luckily I work with my associate head coach is Josh Davis. He's like family to me, and so he's one of my best friends. So we don't ever go through. I'm sure there have been times where I've been frustrated with him or he's been frustrated with me, but for the most part, we got a brotherhood thing going, and we know that we're building the program together with the rest of our staff. Is that being a head coach is a whole. You know, I had gotten to a point where I don't know how good of an assistant coach I was, but I knew what I was doing. It was something I had done for 15 years. And so I knew the calendar of it. I knew the ebbs and flows of it. I knew how to compliment my boss. I knew what the kids needed from me in my role. I knew how to stay out of the way. I knew where my value was needed.
Mm-hmm. Did you know all of these things without having to be told it by who your boss was at the time?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good, man.
Yeah.
That's cheat code right there.
I don't think that I knew it at the beginning, but a guy that I mentioned to you that I met at the very beginning of my coaching career named Alexis Sherrard, who had worked for Pete Gillen for a lot of years, and we worked at Liberty University when I was really young, he's the one that really gave me the cheat code. He taught me everything that I needed to know about being an assistant. I'm still trying to live up to some of the things that he would tell me. Like he's a lot like you. He's very well spoken, good looking man.
Well, I appreciate that, man.
Very just one of those guys who's a really good player. But he got me at a young age, and we were both in a position where we ended up. I wasn't married. His family had not moved down from Charlottesville, so we spent a lot of time together. So he just kind of taught me. He had learned from one of the goats in our business, and so coming to Liberty University, he had many other opportunities, but he came there because it was only 45 minutes or an hour away from Charlottesville, where Coach Gillen had just gotten fired. And so we just hung out a lot, and he just taught me everything that he had known. And so that's kind of how I got started in just the knowledgeable part. But I think all of us figure out at a certain age, if we're in basketball, kind of the things that we can help with. Like some guys are good recruiters, some guys are good at, I've met people along the way. Like one of the guys that I worked with, a guy by the name of Kyle Getter, he now works at the University of Virginia with Tony Bennett, he was just always really comfortable being on the phone with other coaches. And so naturally he turned out to be like a really good scheduler, like scheduling games, really good at talking with other staffs about ideas that maybe they were doing. Naturally, he turned out to be someone that could turn over a lot of different names because he'd be on the phone, and so it wasn't that long for me working with him to figure out that that's what, he has many strengths, but that was strength of his. And so I think the strength that I've always had is that I love basketball, and I love the players that play it, and I love those kids that they want to do something with the game, no matter how unrealistic is it. Like, I want kids that come to OBU that are like, Coach, I know it's a long shot, but, you know, we've had a few NBA players that have been here over the last 30, 40 years. We've had a few guys. We've definitely had a ton of guys that played overseas, but we've actually had a few guys that played in the league. And so I want players that are like, Coach, I know that it's like a long shot to be at a Division II school and to be at OBU and play in the league, but I want guys like that in our program because I'm a big dreamer. As much adversity as I've had in basketball, man, I've had some moments along the way where I find myself in these moments where it's like, I mentioned one of them where we find ourselves playing against Duke in the NCAA tournament and we get them on the ropes and we beat them and we win an ESPY. We've gone to 2 of the last 3 NCAA tournaments here. At Liberty University, we've had some good moments going to the NCAA tournament. And so I've seen what being around big dreamers and workers and talented people that love the game is. I've always been that guy that I would rather be in the gym than in the office.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's a lot of coaches in our business that are so good at doing the other stuff, you know, there's such a need on your staff for both. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of, I think I figured out at a young age where my best chance at having an impact and staying around was if I could recruit a little bit and get to know young people and then how to make them better.
Mastery. Now, you shared a story with me before we got rolling about how your coaching season unfortunately ended last season, which would have been the 2020-21 campaign. Walk me through that and walk the viewers and the listeners through that, because that's a unique set of circumstances, man.
Well, 2 years ago, I think we were 10-1 in the month of February. Mm-hmm. Rashad Lewis, Deshaun Lowry. Rashad came with me from Mercer University. Deshaun had come with us from Wofford. We had some of the kids that were in the program with us. So we go like 10-1 down the stretch. We lose in the conference championship game, which is the automatic bid to the NCAA tournament. We lost within the last couple minutes. So when they did the selection show, we were the last team in, and it was the first time in school history for us. And so when our name popped up, we were playing the 2-time reigning national champs, Northwest Missouri, and we were going to play them in their gym. And it was going to be, you know, they would have had a packed gym, 5,000 or 6,000 people in there. And so right before, actually we were on the bus. We were in Wichita, Kansas, halfway there. We were 2 days out. We were going to get up there a little early. They had a banquet, and that was going to be our region. The whole world stopped with the pandemic. So that NCAA tournament got canceled. So, you know, if they're going to stop the NBA, they're going to stop March Madness and all that, is that it was a dagger to us. But we saw all the people around us going through the same thing, the basketball community. So I tried to tell our guys, like,
it wasn't just y'all that missed it.
Yeah, we were sad, but, you know, if LeBron's going to go through it, we can go through it too.
Good,
you know?
I like that.
And so the last year, we fight through all the different things. We ended up getting 18 conference games in, 1 non-conference game. So we ended up catching fire again in February.
Right when you want to.
Yep, we won our conference regular season championship. We got beat in the semifinals, and so they had reduced the NCAA field at Division II, not Division I, from 64 to 48. So once again, we were the last at-large pick again, not in the 64, but in the 48. So we got the 6th seed in our region. Normally, it's 8 teams that get in per region, and there's 8 regions. So we got the sixth seed playing the 3 seed because, and then the winner of that game, I think it was the 1 or the 2. I think it might have been the 2 seed who we played. So that Wednesday when we were getting on the bus, I had survived all year. We had 1 player that got COVID during the season. Our other kids a lot of them had gotten COVID before the season started. So there had just been this 1 kid who had missed 5 games, and so we took COVID test every week, like every other program. And so that Wednesday when we were getting on the bus, I tested positive for COVID. Looking back on it now, if there was anybody in our program that I would have wanted to get COVID, it would have been me. You know, our returners who had missed out on that opportunity the previous year, I wouldn't want it to be any of them. I've gotten to coach in so many big games, so many fun games. It's been a dream come true with the type of games that I've gotten to coach in. at the time, I was pretty shook up. I called our 3 seniors and tried to tell them that my season was over, and I didn't get through the conversation because I was that choked up about it. But they went on and they won by 20 plus points. Luckily, I say this tongue in cheek completely because I wanted them to win, but we lost to go to the Sweet 16. If they had won that game by 20, I think everybody here would have realized that they didn't need me anymore.
Yeah.
But our guys didn't need me there, and I knew that at the time, based on my coaching journey. The thing that I told them the night before that game is I said, guys, this basketball game has humbled me a long time ago. I said I have no regrets. I coached every practice. I coached every game to the best of my ability. I never took one moment for granted since I've been at OBU, much less last season. I said the only reason why I'm hurting is I just want to be there with you guys. And so I have to be an answer to a trivia question of I've been a head coach for 3 years. We've qualified for 2 NCAA tournaments, and I've yet to coach in an NCAA tournament game. And so that has to
That's almost impossible to fathom.
So they promised that we're going to get back this year. We got a long road to hoe to get there. But I've never coached in the NCAA tournament. My assistant did it. My assistant and my staff, they did it well. But we've got big dreams for this year, whether or not they come to fruition, whether or not we play in a really tough conference.
No doubt.
So I think a lot of us feel this way: high school, college, Division I, Division II, junior college. Every conference play is a beast.
It is.
And so everyone knows each other, and we have so much parity in Division II. You know, Division II, there's like 25 or 30 schools out of the 300 that are really bad.
Right.
All right. Unfortunately, we don't have any of those schools in our conference. And then you have probably 10 that are like, you know, Northwest Missouri would lead that pack that, you know, most years they're way better than the rest of the nation. And then you have about 300 schools that it's like a 50-50 game. And so that's the fun in it. When you're taking over a program and you're like trying to convince people like, hey, I don't know if we can win, but we got a chance.
Yeah,
if we get our team right, there's so much parity. Now, when you get on the other side of expectations and you ever look at it as the glass is half empty and you're like, hey, there's a 50% chance that we could lose every game. And so that's the place that I'm at as a leader and a coach here, is that I want to keep attacking each game, each scouting report, each opportunity, in that we have a chance. You know, the more expectations rise and the more success that you have, the more you can have a tendency to put pressure on not only the players, but yourself as a coach. And I don't want to ever coach that way. I want to always coach with the type of mentality that I'm blessed to be healthy, to not be in quarantine, to have my health, and to have the opportunity. And that as a program, as players and as coaches, is that, you know, this is the opportunity of a lifetime to play this one individual game, because we've all had games taken from us these last couple of years. And so I think that life principle for all of us coaches to completely still ram that home as something that they take with them through this pandemic era, through this COVID era, is that any opportunity that you get in life, you should really thank the Lord for it and give your very best. And then if you get another opportunity, if the world doesn't shut down, or you don't get sick, or you're not hurt, or you don't test positive, that then you get another opportunity, you take that. And so that's kind of goes back to the old AI days, when, you know, he used to always talk about how much love, you know, he was the perfect guy to play for Philly in that town, because he's going to play every game like it's his last, and he's not going to leave he would always say he's not going to leave any bullets in the holster. He's going to shoot his shots, play his game. Now, he might have been out, you know, the night before a little bit more than me.
You know, he burn that midnight oil.
Yeah, but, you know, I think that's a mentality that we're going to really strain and try hard to maintain with our group, is that whatever opportunities God has given us, we're going to attack it and enjoy it. And then when the adversity comes, because it's going to come for all of us, and when the success comes, that we're going to use it to its fullest either way, you know. And like, the adversity is the part that we've all grown from, you know, through athletics. And that's the best thing that we can teach the players that play for us is how to use that in a positive way.
For sure. I got 2 more things for you, Coach.
Okay.
Number 1, how do you decompress? A hobby or hobbies of yours outside of the workplace, aka the gym. Is there an off switch?
Yeah, there's definitely. As a younger coach, as a younger man, I didn't, and that really got me into trouble.
Okay.
And that's for a whole other podcast. But I certainly do. I'm married now. I have a 4-year-old. When I went through a period where I was out of a job, I didn't even know that this world that we have existed outside of our basketball thing until about 10 years ago or 8 years ago. I went through a year where I didn't have basketball. I had gotten fired and let go of my job. And so I have a few shows that I watch, that me and my wife watch. There's a show on, I don't know if it's Netflix or what it is, but The Newsroom. I love that
Okay.
show.
Yeah.
The morning show with Jennifer Aniston, and that she's produced. And so I kind of have a few shows that I'll watch. Another way that I decompress is that I love praise and worship, gospel music. And so I spend, even when I'm in the middle of preparation or in the middle of going into competition, one of the things that Coach Hoffman and I, even to this day, that we always share with each other is that if we find a good praise and worship song, we'll always share that with one another, and enjoy and walk through these seasons with the Lord. And just, you as a coach, as silly as it sounds, is if you lose a couple games, you feel like your whole world's falling apart. If
a 3-game losing streak might send you into retirement.
yeah. And so my relationship with the Lord, my relationship with my family, I definitely have. I play, before I had a child, Isaac is 4 now. I used to play a little bit of golf. I don't really play golf anymore. But I would say that those 2 things. But I have some people in my life that are built into my life for a reason. I have some spiritual mentors in my life that I can now get away from the game. And if I wasn't able to do that, it's really what got me in the middle of a problem that I had way back when, a personal problem, is it was 24/7. And that part of these coaches' lives gets glorified at times of, oh man, a guy watches film all night long and he's 24/7. And so I bought into that, and it hurt me. The enemy used that. I created a habit of thinking that was what successful coaches, and so I've been around a lot of successful men, a lot of successful coaches then, that have really showed me that what a successful man is, that he has different parts of his life that are not just basketball. Granted, I'm not unlike most coaches is that when practice is over, the kids are happy and I'm really sad because I always tell them I got to go back to my real life.
Yeah.
I love being in the gym. I love getting ready for a game.
Mm-hmm.
I love competition, especially when you have a good group of kids, a good group of girls or guys. When you know you have a good team, when you know you have willing listeners and guys that have good habits in your life, there's so much joy that goes into our job here because, you saw our boys earlier. When you have the right type of young people coaching, there's no way that you could hand me a certain amount of money and say, hey, you could take this money if you go do this. When you have a good group of young people, I mean, it really fulfills you and satisfies you in ways that money can't, of just being in the middle of that. So decompressing, I definitely have different ways of that. I would say more than anything, just listening to Christian music, praise and worship music. That's the way that I decompress, but that's also the way that I get myself going in the morning.
There you go. He's got full control. You can compartmentalize with the best of them. I love it. Lastly, here's how we'll wrap it up, Coach. I want you to dig into the archives. All right, take me back to a game that you lost as a coach, that you had no business losing. And when you think about it, it still grinds your gears. And if you could go back and run it back, you go right back to that game. Whether that's as a head coach or as an assistant coach, which one would you go and play over?
Well, our first year at OBU, there's a few games that come to mind. Our first year at OBU, we were at Northwestern. We were up 8 or 9 late in the game. There was a few interesting calls that were made late in the game.
Great word.
We had like a jump stop. I was trying to get our 2 guard to hand it back off to our point guard to run something. So he goes to a jump stop to hand it off to our point guard, and the ref, I think he might have moved his butt a little bit, but that's a tough call to make late in the game. And then they hit a 3 at the buzzer, and the kid's foot was on the line. And so, of course, depending on the game at Division II or small college, it's not like they have CBS was not at the game. And so that game, I always, and our kids were furious after the game, and we always when you win, you never really say anything about the refs, and then when you lose a game, our human instinct is to look at a call here, a call there. When officials are just like us coaches and players, is they don't get every call right, and we don't get it. We're not even close to getting every coaching move right. And so there was a few tough breaks when calls that could have gone either way. But I really remember that, because when I walked into the locker room, and as it was to go like 4-0 in our conference, we were picked last in our conference our first year, and so that was either the last game before Christmas or the second to last game. And so if we had won that game, we would have finished 4-0 in our conference, and in the big world view, it wasn't the end of the world. But when I walked into the locker room, the reason why I hold on to that game is we had some players that were really upset. And I just remember walking out to the bus, and as mad as I was, I said, you know what, we got a chance. Because I saw that they cared. And that was the biggest thing to me, is that I want people involved as assistant coaches, administrators, and players that care. And so when we had a kid after the game handle it the wrong way. Love the kid. He's a great kid. But he came in there, and we were in one of those small locker rooms, and he kind of pushed over a chair and was he's yelling a little bit, like, "Coach, can you believe it?" Whatever. And so we sat down and talked about, as mad as you can be in athletics, of how to handle that frustration or anger. But I just remember in my heart, I was like, one of the big things that Dick Bennett, who was the dad of Tony Bennett, and Tony Bennett, in my mind, is the best coach in the business at University of Virginia as far as the total package.
Right.
Is that he had always been taught by his dad that before you get kids that you can win with, you need to get the right kids that you can lose with. And so I'm not that way, because I'm like, if we lose too much, then they're not going to want me here anymore.
Yeah.
But I just remember walking out of the locker room that day, and I just said, I feel good about losing with those kids. Did we handle everything the right way? Did we execute everything the right way? No. We did get robbed. That game still, they should put that back on our record for a lot of reasons. Right. When a guy steps on the line, it should be 2 points and not 3. But that game sticks with me, but not in a negative way. It sticks with me in a positive way of when you're preparing your team. And this time of year, Coach Sampson always talks about, every time he's in front of his team, he's always talking about when they're doing conditioning, can you win on the road? Calls can go against you on the road. Adversity is going to come at you on the road. Not that in a home game it can't come at you, but he's always using those framing, all those word phrasing with his team. And so, I've referenced that game to our players the last 3 years, probably once a month. I'll call a foul on them on practice, and they'll smart off to me or say, "Oh, coach," I'll just say, and I'll look at one of the other kids and be like, "Did we not get one of them type of calls before?" And they'll always just kind of nod their head. And that it really doesn't resonate with any of us until, it's like COVID. COVID doesn't really resonate with any of us until it's one of our family members that got it. And that's in the hospital. Yeah, that got in the hospital, or that we've had it. And so when you've been in it a lot of years, you're going to have some games that you quietly forget that you had no business winning, that you might have gotten a favorable call, or you might have kicked in a shot at the buzzer. But we have such a tendency as coaches to forget those, and we really are just like, "Oh, well, we should have won this one." So that game definitely sticks out.
Well, Coach, man, you certainly gave me a lot of life principles this evening, man. And I've been watching you from afar. I look forward to this season from you guys, man. And, just keep doing what you're doing. And listen, I'm going to bring my boys up here to come check a practice out if I can.
No question.
Right hand of fellowship, though.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're doing with your platform. I definitely have followed you guys. Me and you have exchanged different messages over the last however many months.
Finally got to the line.
Yeah, and so I appreciate the investment that you're making, and I just think that over the course of what you're doing, there's so many different things that you're going to learn and so many connections that you're going to make with so many of us in coaching. And at the end of the day, if you want to have any longevity in coaching, you know, the people that you meet and the people that you connect with, and for you, you're really using this podcast and this platform that you have, is that what a wonderful way to connect with people. And so I've enjoyed listening to several of your interviews with Coach Price and some different guys.
Some good guys and good gals gave me some good times, and now you're on that list, my friend. We'll be talking soon.
We